Welcome back to The Experience. Today my guest is Jon McCarthy. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Hey, man, that's a pleasure to be here. Blown away.
You said that when you walked in when me and Chris was here, and that's the shit that geeks me out.
Yeah.
Because, like, what was your, like, when you say blown away, like, what would you feel?
Now, you guys got the setup, man. I mean, this place is from when you walk in the door to the lobby or whatever you want, the green room, I guess.
Yeah, the lounge.
The lounge.
That's the lounge.
Yeah, it's just the whole, the ambiance hits you right when you walk through the door, you know, and it just continues, the gear, the lighting, and this is a pro-ass setup you guys got going here. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's the whole experience.
Yeah.
So you can't, like, come into the show and just be like, yeah, I'll show up right before you start. Like, nah.
Yeah.
The whole point of getting here, did you kind of see, like, us hanging outside and vibing with everybody?
Yeah.
It's like you're getting this whole vibe that you're not used to getting. Like, you're meeting people you never met, but you're somehow kind of connecting to them.
Right.
You know, because we're all, like I told you earlier, it's different people under one roof.
Yeah.
That are all creative minds.
It's killer, man.
Thank you, dude.
I'm super impressed. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, so you're an actor, right? So
I used to be.
Used to be. So, I mean, you've been around the block.
Yeah. That's what I feel like right now. We're recording some ADR for a film or something, you know.
Is it, like, probably 10 times more cameras?
Oh, yeah. There's cameras everywhere on those things. Lights. You can't hardly see anything, you know.
Yeah, I remember doing the, I think I told you, like, the Terminator movie.
Yeah.
Like an extra.
Yeah.
And, dude, it was like a 16-hour shoot, and the shit that they filmed, they didn't even put it in the movie.
Right.
And it's like, I'm watching the fucking beginning, and I was like, what?
Yeah, if you ever, the first time anyone I think goes on a film set, you learn pretty quickly that it is hella boring, dude. Like, you know, you think it's going to be all this excitement, but it's a lot of hurry up and wait, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Because they have to move everything around every time. When you're watching a movie, you don't realize that. Okay, I'm watching this guy, and then I'm on the other direction. I see him running towards me. Well, that's a complete camera setup. You know, that's stop. Take an hour to move everything over here to film 3 seconds or something, you know.
Yeah, so, dude. It's people don't realize, like, the actual production that goes into, like, even this.
Yeah.
You know, because from the camera, the TV, it looks, you know, oh, that's cool, but I mean, there's a whole fucking team running this place, you know.
Dude, and doing a killer job. This is legit as hell. I'm really impressed.
Trying to get to JRE, baby.
Hey, I think you're on the right track, man.
So the ADHD part works, the experience part works. Good, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what are you doing nowadays? You're also a paramedic?
Yeah. I've been a paramedic since 1997 is when I got into that.
Okay.
And I still do that to this day. The job that I have now is a little bit more, not ambulances, not all that crazy stuff. Right. It's a little bit more kind of chill, you know, working with people who have high medical needs. Okay. Kind of going into their houses and just kind of helping them out. It's really more of a supportive thing, not as much like active hands-on medicine.
Gotcha.
You know.
Gotcha. How long? So how many years you said?
God, 26 now, I think. Yeah, a long time.
What made you want to do that?
Originally, so when I came out of high school, I joined the Coast Guard because I graduated with a 1.9 GPA. Mm-hmm. I don't even think you can graduate with that anymore.
I think I was a 1.6.
Yeah, dude, I was really
whatever the lowest of the lowest.
Yeah, it was barely getting by, you know. And so my options were pretty limited coming out of high school. I knew for sure at that point in my life I had no interest in going back to do any more school stuff. So college was off the table. I probably could have played college baseball, but again, the grades were terrible, you know. Yeah. So I chose to go in the service, and I chose the Coast Guard.
Nice. Thank you for the service.
Oh, thanks, man. And at that time, or pretty much my whole life, my dad was a cop. And
same.
So when I went into that, I had my ambition was to go into law enforcement like my dad had done. And he's actually the one that talked me out of it.
No shit.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Early on, he taught me a lesson that I learned kind of the hard way, and we'll talk about a little bit later with the book and stuff like that. But and I saw it growing up, how that job kind of changes you, you know.
For sure.
He was a good dad. I lost him in 2019.
Sorry.
But thanks, man. And but I saw that change happen to him, where he got immersed in the work, and then suddenly everybody was a piece of shit. You know, everybody was a liar, because that's what you dealt with primarily in that line of work. You know, it's dark job.
Correct.
And he was like, "Son, I'm just telling you, please don't make the mistake and do this like I did." And then the funny thing was, I was like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? You know? And my mom came to me and she goes, you know, you used to watch, because I grew up in the 80s.
Nice.
She's like, you know, you used to really like all these horror movies. You know, I used to have her rent these Faces of Death movies. You remember this?
Yes. Traces of Death.
Faces
of Death,
all of that shit.
I think Traces was like the fucking like more hardcore version.
Yeah. She's like, you always like that blood and gut stuff. You should become a paramedic. And I was like, It's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started that. I got out in 95, in February of 95. I got out of the service, and I think I started EMT school August of 95.
Nice.
So I became an EMT in 96 in Tallahassee, Florida, where I'm from, and then went right into paramedic school from there.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of what led me down that road.
So that's how long. Wow, dude. So was it like a 3-year program or 2-year?
The one I went through, the EMT program was 2 semesters, so basically a year, and then the paramedic one was 3 semesters on top of that. But the big thing with that was the clinical hours. You know, where I went to school. It's a little bit different here in Louisiana, but in Florida, when I went through it, it was we had to do 1,500 hours of like clinicals where you're in delivering babies in an operating room, working with these people, doing airway stuff, and a lot of ambulance time, a lot of emergency room time.
Right.
Just kind of like on the job training type stuff.
Right.
Where you don't get paid, you know.
Dude, yeah. Right? And I mean, you're an actor, paramedic, and a comic creator, right? So it's like, I mean, there's people out there that are probably like comic books because, like, you know, had my arm wrestling friend on, Kyle Aber, you know, it's like every different type of person.
Yeah, yeah.
Know?
Oh, yeah, man.
So not maybe every episode you're going to like.
Right.
But you'll find one that you could jive to.
Yeah, I think it's just about it, like we talked about before. I think it's the story as much as the, you know, who the guest is or what they're coming on for.
Right.
It's the story to focus. That's why I like listening to podcasts, just hearing like individual, unique experiences that people have had,
right,
and how they kind of got to wherever they're at. You know, like arm wrestling. I mean, shit, dude,
yeah, dude,
that was never on the table for me.
No, dude. Well, the thing is, it's like it's a profession,
right?
Like he's a fucking pro arm wrestler,
yeah. And
if he makes it to like some of the tops, you know, wins,
yeah.
I mean, he can go to the Arnold Classic, get sponsored. I mean, he's been arm wrestling since we were little.
Yeah, I'm sure it's killer, but
he loves it.
I remember that peaked back in growing up in the 80s, that Over the Top movie. Man.
Yeah,
Sylvester Stallone,
when he
sent
puts
arm
the
wrestling,
hat backwards.
Did his little technique that he had, you know?
Well, yeah, dude.
He sent arm wrestling to the stratosphere.
It's like we said earlier outside, you know, you got to do something that you love doing because, like, at the beginning, you're not going to make money at it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're doing it to make money, then you might as well quit.
100%.
So it's just, you just got to, like, what did you say earlier? You have to immerse yourself?
Yeah, you have to, like, my theory and my personal theory, and I've preached this to my kids a lot. I think it's possible for anyone to do anything that they want to do,
100%.
you know? But the larger your goal is, the more obstacles.
Yeah, the harder it's going to be to get there.
100%.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like the universe is like, okay, you want to do this really crazy ass thing. So let's say you decide you want to go in the NBA. The chances of you doing that are not great, but it's possible.
Right. But,
you know,
but to be as famous or close to like a next Joe Rogan,
yes,
it's like, I'm not trying to be Brad Pitt.
Right.
I'm not trying to be an actor.
Right.
I mean, it's podcasting.
Right.
So, you know, using the internet, World Wide Web, all that good shit, and just, you know, somebody could see a video tomorrow and it's like, he goes viral.
Yeah, and listen, I respect that, man. I mean,
but it takes work.
You could say, hey, I just want to make a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, or you could say, I'm going to make a podcast, and my goal is to be one of the biggest podcasts in the United States. Yeah. So that's the goal you set for yourself, which I respect the hell out of that.
I was actually thinking worldwide.
Yeah, hey, worldwide, brother. You know, everywhere.
Hey, dude, if I'm gonna fucking reach for the moon, if I fall and hit a star, at least, you know.
You're right, dude.
Yeah,
at least you took the journey,
right?
Yeah,
dude. I mean, I got to dream big, man.
That's it, and that goes with what I was saying before.
Imagination.
I believe that anyone can accomplish anything they want to do, but you have to be willing to commit to it at that level, because the adversity, the no's you're going to get, the rejection, all of that kind of stuff is going to test your resolve to that. And it's going to weed out 99.9% of people who set out to do that big goal that they had.
Correct.
Because it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a long time. You think like, okay, this is going to hit, you know, the stars are going to align for me here. And it doesn't happen when you thought it was going to happen. And
correct.
That shuts a lot of people down. So you have to have that passion for what you're doing. And if you do, and you have an unwavering desire to accomplish that goal, you'll do it. I truly believe that. I think it's possible for anybody to do anything they want.
Yeah, dude. I'm living my dream right now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much like, I've accomplished what I set out to do 6 years ago. So,
well, that speaks to what you were saying a moment ago, I think, is it's besides having that resolve.
Right.
And part of that resolve, I think, is loving what you're doing.
For
because
sure.
if you don't enjoy it as you're doing it, so if you're like, all right, I'm going to go record these episodes and, shit, man, if I'm not making X amount of dollars by this period of time, if that's your motivation, that's not enough to carry you to the finish line for that, But if you're loving it as you're doing it, then all that stuff comes with that. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of love, that kind of passion you got to have for what you're doing to carry you to that point. I believe that with every fiber of my being.
Dude, I think it's the truth. It's like my good friend Jeff said, he's like, I don't think you're obsessed enough yet. He's like, if you want to make it to that level, you have to become obsessed.
That's true, man.
You have to fuck everything that don't, you can't be going out. And so when he told me that, man, like I was just starting. Yeah. And dude, it fucked up my marriage. It caused it's like being an addict. Yeah. But I believed in myself so much that I was like, well, this is all I got. Yeah. Because I already fucked up my life doing other dumb shit. Right. So why don't I put my addiction into this? Yeah. And we're getting close, man.
There's definitely consequences, I feel like, to that, because you only have so many hours in a day.
For sure, yeah.
And you can only
I'm trying to learn balance.
Yeah, you can only allocate those hours to so many different things, but you have to put a lot of them towards what you're trying to accomplish, or it ain't going to work.
Yes. You have to work your day job, and you have to, there was steps it took to get here, and it didn't happen overnight. This is like a 6-year journey. We only launched the podcast like little over 2 years ago. So we were like in a house. Yeah, yeah. And then a year later in a studio, and then we got some things in the mix now, and it's like, and it's still like, it hasn't made, funds. People hate when I talk about that, but I'm just trying to be realistic to like people out there watching. Like,
no, I get it.
Because Joe Rogan's always telling people it's easy. Yeah. But if you have friends with money and you're into like that industry, it is easy.
Well, I think doing recording. Say I'm going to make a podcast. That's not that difficult.
No, well,
but if you're on a level,
if you're a tech
guy, level of what you're doing it at here with this setup,
I went crazy.
Versus, anybody with an iPhone can make a podcast. Correct. But you're going to get a podcast that's made on an iPhone level quality,
for sure,
and that's never going to get you to where you want to be. Right. That's like saying, well, I can make a hit record. Well, hell, I can record an album on GarageBand on my phone. And it's not the same as if I go into a recording studio with musicians and stuff.
Unless you fucking go viral over some crazy shit, which like I told you, it's like 1 out of a million. Yeah. And like with me when I started, it was like, okay, I'm gonna need a team because like, I can't do this by myself. I didn't even know how to use a fucking computer. Yeah. So I'm like the opposite of most people. I'm not tech savvy at all. Right. So everything that you saw today, that's all been learned. And so I was like, man, I can't believe I learned how to do that crazy shit. Cause so I believe what you're saying, dude.
When I watch a lot of, not a lot, but I'm drawn towards watching documentaries
for sure about
people,
I just saw the Conor McGregor one.
Yeah. Any of those. And I've watched enough of them where I think this is a regularly occurring theme. And it kind of goes to what we were saying a moment ago. Everyone that you know of, every person whose name that anyone out there knows, those people, the vast majority, if not all of them, had to face this adversity that we're talking about. You know of them because they've reached the other side of it. But when you watch these documentaries, that's what I find interesting about these documentaries. And I'm talking anywhere from fucking Ben and Jerry's, the guy that made the ice cream, the dude that invented M&M candies, fucking Dio, the rock singer, Conor McGregor, whoever it is. When you know their name, you only know their name because they made it through that adversity and they made it to that they've accomplished that big goal they set out in front of themselves. But if you go back and watch all of those backstories, all of that time before they got there, when no one knew who they were, dude. No, it's not that it's horrifying. It's real. Right. And it shows you that, like you said, that 1 in a million. And I don't even know if it's that good of odds. You have to work your ass off.
I think Steve Harvey said this, if God told you like what it would take for you to get to your dream, you think you would still do it? If he showed you that long ass road with all those fucked up steps and all those closed doors that you got to bust through and find new ones, would you still do that goal? Yeah. Dude, that shit hit me when I heard it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think that and all the obstacles, all that adversity you're going to encounter, that's the universe testing that resolve. And it's something that all of those people, when you watch these documentaries, or any famous person, quote unquote, they've all, Joe Rogan even, everyone had to eat shit. Yeah. And you have to eat a lot of it. And you just have to keep eating it. And eventually you take smaller and smaller bites as you get further down that line, That's kind of how I look at it.
Joe Rogan used to say, the the reason why I'm so good at all my jobs now is because I used to be a horrible fucking worker. It was like I was always late. He's like, I was a shit worker when I was young. So when I became older, I wanted to prove to myself that, no, dude, you're capable of doing this.
Yeah.
And so that's why he's like just on point with everything now. And all the shit that he does, he loves.
Yeah.
So he's getting paid to do shit that he loves to do.
Yeah. That's the dream.
Yeah. Like, right? What do you love to do? Like, what besides paramedic, besides acting, like, what do you love to do? What's your thing?
I mean, besides the family stuff, you know, I enjoy creating stories. You know, I really like entertaining people with stories.
Right.
I consider myself to be a creative person. Unfortunately, I can't draw, so I'm visually creative. I don't have any of that ability. I did some photography for a little bit and wasn't horrible at it, but my main thing is I know that I can tell good stories.
Right.
You know?
So you're a writer.
Yes.
So when you're writing something, because I think when we spoke the other day on the phone, it's like, okay, you have a guy draw your stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you're not even like giving him visuals of like what you're thinking. You just have to read the script.
That's the bigger part of the curse that I have is I'm a very visual thinker. So when I write a script for the way the process works is I'll come up with a story, and it'll usually spark off of some kind of crazy ass just random moment that I'll be like, oh, okay. Like the way that's why I love ADHD experience, because I too have ADHD.
Yes, sir.
So I always liken it that in my mind, creatively, I have like a 5-burner stove in there with only one of the burners is on.
Oh,
so there's usually 5 stories that I just cycle through there.
Okay.
And the one that's on the hot plate at the moment is the one that's got my attention and the one that I'm feeling like I can make something cool with. And then if it starts to fade or I get writer's block or whatever it is, I'll just slide that one to the side and bring one of those other ones up to the hot plate. You know,
no shit.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I create it. So when I write a story for a comic book in particular, I'll write the script out, and basically you write it out through the art. There's the weird thing about comics is there's no 100% rock solid rule set of way to do it. You can kind of do it. It's like making music almost. There's a million different ways to get there.
Right.
But the way I do it is I write out the panel descriptions and just kind of focus on what I feel is important. But I'm also like, I tell the artist whenever I work with them, man, do your thing. Like if it's something that I feel is important to the story that, you know, that maybe later on down the line is going to come back as a plot point or something like that, I'll make sure that that's in there. But I kind of let them just read my words and
that's what I was going to ask.
How they interpret.
So they have to read your comic first, and then they visualize the ideas in their head and draw it.
Yeah. I send them a script. And so in comics, you know, they're broken down into little squares on the page. Those are called panels.
Yes.
And so I'll decide how many panels are on the page. So I'll say, okay, we're going to do 6 panels on this page. First panel, guy, you know, this kid's walking down the street. Second, you know, that kind of thing.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah. And let them kind of interpret it. And if there's anything specific I have in mind, I'll send them reference pictures or something like that. But yeah.
And then maybe once he draws it up, and if you really don't like it, you're like, I like everything but this.
Yeah.
And then so you get that sort of visual.
It's a collaborative experience where, you know, they're being paid. So technically we have the control of saying, no, that sucks. Do it over again. But when you surround yourself like you have here, when you surround yourself with talented people, you trust them to do what they do, what they're talented doing. And so that's what I do with artists. I scout them out first.
Oh, wow.
And finds the ones that I feel like their style is going to reflect what I'm doing the best. And so I'm not a micromanaging person.
Right.
And so, and then it's just a collaborative experience. I throw it to them, and sometimes they'll say like, hey, you said 6 panels for this page, but I think we can tell this story in 4 panels. So,
nice.
Okay,
right.
I don't care.
Right. Cause you need that input.
Yeah. My big thing when I approach anything like that is everything is all about the work. So whatever it takes to make the story the best that it can be, I'm not precious. Just because I wrote the stuff, it's not precious to me. I don't care. If it needs to be cut, we cut it. Just everything serves the story. Yes. And so everybody's on that same page. It usually works out pretty well. Yeah.
It's you got to let the pride and ego go. And just like let other people, like your specialty is here. This specialty is here, and then they make this baby.
Right, exactly, right. Rudyard Kipling, I think, is the guy that had this quote called "kill." He said, you have to be willing to kill your darlings."
Okay.
And that's one you hear a lot when you're writing, and that's something when you first start out writing, you think everything you write is the best shit ever, right? You're like, bro, this ain't nobody ever read no shit like this before.
Yeah, dude, I'm writing that shit down.
And then you go back and you read what you wrote a week or a month later, and you're like, what is this piece of shit? You know?
Right.
So you have to be willing to sacrifice your story and leave your pride behind and say, all right, whatever it takes to make this the best that it can be. That's where, like, you know, with a comic book, there's a whole team involved. I create it come up with the idea, write the script. Then you have a penciler who draws it. Then you have an inker who goes on top of those pencils with inks and fills in blacks and things like that. Then you bring in a colorist. And then after the colorist, you bring in a letterer who does the word balloons and things like that. And then in between all of that process, you have an editor who's going to go over my script first and catch any mistakes that I've made or any continuity errors. And in theory, be there through the whole process and be like, hey, the artist chose to focus the camera of this shot on the comic page from this direction, but it doesn't make any sense because the next one it's going opposite, that kind of stuff.
Dude, that's so dope. There's a whole network to it.
It is. It's almost like shooting a movie. It really is.
No, because like you're given visual pictures.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like, that frame shot was like,
the two are very similar. You're limited with comics because you're telling static images. So you don't have the ability, the luxury for movement or sound and things like that.
Right. Well, it's like my buddy Gary Cree. He's written novels, right? And so his editor, he's like, dude, I've had to go back and rewrite shit 3 times, but like God. So it's a big deal.
3 would be a dream.
When you're right. Oh, dude, yeah,
rewriting.
And that's just for like one of his novels.
Yeah.
And when he finally published it, I mean, it got a lot of great attention and it's doing really well. He just got nominated for some big award this past year.
That's awesome.
I think it was like top 10. So yeah, dude, like I really like comics is like new now, I had an author. I got a comic creator.
I've done the other type of writing as well.
Yeah, because you said you went to school for it a little bit, or you took some classes.
I've always kind of been gravitated towards writing stories. I think
the screenwriting is what you said.
Yeah, that's how I started. But I remember I wrote I think I was in the 7th grade. It was around the time that the Challenger space shuttle exploded. And we had this assignment to write a poem, So I wrote this poem and I submitted it. And I remember the teacher got all pissed off and she accused me of plagiarizing it. She accused me of stealing it. And I was like, that's fucking awesome. Apparently I can write a story good enough that this teacher thinks I stole it from somewhere else, dude. And I didn't. It wasn't plagiarized. It was an original poem. So I think that was the first seed planted in my mind. It's like, hey, man, you could tell stories.
Pretty good at this shit.
Yeah. So then fast forward, right around the time, this was probably in like 2000. My first son was born in 2000. And that's sort of what triggered off this thing inside of me where I decided I want to chase my dreams. I really want to, as an example for my children, it's a disservice to me to tell them to chase their dreams, but I'm not chasing mine, So that's when I decided I was going to focus on writing. And it was fun. But, I started on that with wanting to write screenplays. I've always been a big movie fan, and it's kind of it's not an easy way to write, but it's much easier than writing. Like you said, your friend writes novels. Yes. That's a difficult style to write in if you're not used to writing that style. So I was like, I'm going to learn screenwriting. And the cool thing about learning screenwriting is you can go to film school for it, but you really don't need to for that. There's so many books, so many resources. You can really learn the craft of writing that way yourself, So I studied that really intensely.
In depth,
yeah. And that actually is what led to the whole acting thing later on down the line because, when you start writing screenplays, there's usually in any of those screenwriting books, they're going to recommend that at some point maybe you take an acting class just so that you can write better dialogue because you're writing words for people to say, and you don't want your characters to sound the same when you're writing.
Right.
Everyone needs their own voice. And and then that led to the acting thing.
Dude.
Yeah.
So screenwriting first, then acting.
Yeah, screenwriting and I moved. I was in Florida back at that time, so this was like 2000. I was in college, finishing up my actual degree for paramedic stuff, and I did a second degree for just general studies, and just taking a bunch of art classes and writing classes and things like that.
Right.
And God, that got me. I think I started acting probably in 2004. I took an acting class in that same college I was in just for shits and giggles. So, all right, it says in this screenwriting book I need to take an acting class, so I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and I'm going to take an acting class, So I did one, and we did a couple of plays, and I got some the local newspaper in Tallahassee gave me a review. It was like, oh, this their comic timing was spot on. They said yes. I was like, oh, okay, shit, cool. And then Katrina happened, and my wife is from here. So as soon as we were able to move back, we said we're moving back because I always loved New Orleans. She's from here, and so it wasn't a question. So we came back, and I told her, I was like, and Katrina happened right in the middle of me doing all these plays and stuff, And so we moved back over here. I was like, there's actually a little bit of a movie scene happening in New Orleans right now because they had done all these tax breaks and stuff to try to reinvigorate the economy here after the hurricane. And so I was like, I'm going to go see if I can get an agent. You know, they got this newspaper guy said my timing was good as an actor, so maybe I don't completely suck at this. So let me go see if I can find an agent. So I went and auditioned for this agent, and he was like, yeah, you know, I'll sign you. So he signed me, and then he got me some work, and pretty quickly in there, I was able to join the Screen Actors Guild. And I never did anything crazy with acting.
Yeah, but dude, to like most people go out and become, like I told you, I did extra work. And I was like, man, being an actor is fucking hard. Fuck this. Yeah. I'm not doing this anymore. But like you went a whole different route and like had success early.
I tried to approach it like, you know, the craft, you know, as they say. I still think I was fucking terrible at it, to be honest with you. And but it was fun. I met some really cool people. I did it for a couple of years, and then it got to the point of where I was still a paramedic at that time. I was working on the ambulances in New Orleans. So as the ambulance service got busier, as people started to come back into the city, I wasn't able. It got to the point of because with acting, when you're with an agent, there's no really notification. You know, they would call you at like 9 o'clock at night and say, hey, they want to see you in Baton Rouge tomorrow at like 7 a.m. to audition for this part. And I'm like, well, I got to work tomorrow. I can't fucking, you know, I got a wife and kids, man. I can't just not go to work, you know? So that started to happen a lot more frequently. And I just decided to kind of back out of it and then to go back and start focusing on the writing more. But I didn't want to be the guy that if a casting director asked to see me for a part, that I didn't show up, because there's only a few of those casting directors around here, and you don't want to get blacklisted. I was like, maybe I want to go back and do this again one day. And I never followed back up with it. And that was probably 2007, 8, 9-ish, somewhere around there. I think. Yeah.
Didn't you say you met John Cena?
Yeah. I did he was doing a movie here. Oh God, what was the name of that movie? 12 Rounds. Oh yeah, it's called 12 Rounds. Yeah, and I didn't act in that film. A friend of mine was, she's a nurse. She's a stunt woman, and she was doing their like medical coverage on the set for that. And she had a few days where she wasn't going to be able to be there, or either she was doing stunts or something. And she asked me if I would fill in and cover the medic stuff for her.
So she was double dipping.
Yeah, kind of double dipping. Yeah,
that's fucking badass.
So they were shooting this scene down in the French Quarter on Decatur Street, right outside this fire station. They had built this little fake like cell phone store right beside that fire station. And so we were he was the star of that movie, obviously. And we were eating lunch, and because I was a paramedic at the time, you know, those firefighters and shit, went and hopped on the front bumper of a fire truck. You know, everybody's eating lunch. So I'm sitting on the bumper of this fire truck, and he comes walking outside. He's like, hey man, you mind if I sit here? I was like, nah, fucking have a seat, dude.
John Cena,
yeah. So it's just me and him sitting there. And my niece at the time was a fucking huge fan of his. I mean, like crazy fan of his. And because I think that might have been the first movie or something he did.
Yeah, I think so.
After wrestling. Yeah. So he was pretty recently in the ring.
Correct.
So I was like, we finished eating and we were just like bullshitting. You know, he was like, oh man, how you doing? What's going on? I'm like, oh, I'm, paramedic. So he's like, oh shit, that's cool. That's why you're sitting on this fire truck. I was like, yeah. So I was like, hey dude, would you be cool to do a practical joke? I said, my niece is a huge fan of yours. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. What you want to do?
Oh, wow.
So I take my cell phone out and I call her, and I hand the phone to him, and he puts on speakerphone. I think I still had a flip phone. So this was whenever that movie came out, 2008 or something like that, maybe. So he's holding up this cell phone, and her name was Brittany. She's since passed away, unfortunately. But
sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, thank you. So I hand him the phone, and I hear her answer the phone, and he's like, she's like, hello? And he's like, hey, Brittany, I hear you're a big fan of mine. She knew it was my phone because, my caller ID or whatever. She's like, who is this, Uncle John? And he's like, oh, come on. That's disappoints me. You say you're a fan of mine and you don't even recognize my voice. This is John Cena. And then
dude,
there's like a moment of silence there. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the screaming starts, and he's like holding the phone away from his ear. And she's like, oh my God, I love you, all that shit.
Dude, that's badass.
Yeah, he was really cool. Took some time, talked to her on the phone for a few minutes. And then, that was pretty much the extent of that. Making prank phone calls with John Cena.
Oh no, dude, that's like the great thing. Like you said, he was real nice to that little boy.
Yeah,
when they were filming.
That same day, later on after that lunch, they were filming a scene right on the sidewalk there. And I was kind of off to the side, and I watched this dad and his kid's probably 7, 8 years old, you know. And they were walking. And the kid, movie sets. There's a whole lot of shit going on, so it usually catches everyone's attention. And I was watching that little boy, and I saw he was like looking around through the crowd to see what was going on, and then he saw John Cena, and I saw his fucking eyes got huge, like the size of saucers. Well, Cena saw that as well, and in the middle of the scene, they're shooting it. He just stops. I don't think he said cut, but it was basically that same thing,
Where he just fucking puts his arms out.
He just stopped what he was doing and looked at that kid and called him through the crowd and just kneeled down.
He was still a big deal, like
he was huge. Yeah, I think it was WWE. I wasn't really watching that.
But I mean, he was like The Rock. Like he was like a big at that level.
Yeah, he was a big,
like because all those other dudes retired, so he was like the next big thing. Yeah. So when that kid fucking seen him, he was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, no, that's like my niece was such a big fan of his. But yeah, that little boy saw him and like crapped his pants. But Cena stopped what they were doing, called that kid over there, and like just kneeled down in front of him, and got to his eye level and just had a conversation. And I think he signed an autograph for him or something. Wow. But just
it just goes to show you, like I told you in the lounge, it's such a disappointment when you do hear of a celebrity that you look up to, that you respect, being an asshole, and you're like, damn, really? But
that dude is not that. As I was telling you before, man, I do not accept any John Cena slander. I spent that day and then the next day, dude, I'm telling you, just a good dude, really cool guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he probably has never forgot where he came from,
right?
And unfortunately, money changes people, but that's good to know that people like him that are that successful are still like that.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. He's
not really tall, but he's a big boy.
I heard he's kind of short, man.
I mean, I would guess just off of memory, he's probably like 6 foot, 6'1".
Oh, that's not too short then. Yeah,
maybe 5'11", but I mean, he's not
just
like
so
6
stout that he looks short,
jacked. Though he's a big boy.
Yeah, to the gills, dude.
It's a big dude.
To the gills. So you also met another guy.
Oh man, I've met a lot of these cats, dude. Yeah.
But you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about that one, the Quentin Tarantino story. Yeah. So this was a crazy story, and I sometimes think back, and when you were asking me about coming on the show, I was like, man, I haven't heard
this yet, so I'm fucking amped up.
I have no shortage of like crazy stories, but so this one occurs back in around 2009. A buddy of mine did this actual comic book.
Okay.
This zombie comic book, first comic book I ever made. Hungry for Stink, it was called.
How many comics do you have actually?
Oh. It's probably getting close to the double digits. That'll be out by the end of this year.
Okay.
That we've made.
We'll backtrack to that.
Yeah. But so we had made this book, and this was, like I said, I think it's 2009. And you remember Fangoria magazine? You ever heard of that? The horror magazine. Yes. They used to. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do conventions. Mm-hmm. So they were having one in Los Angeles, and this was still when I was kind of acting at that time.
Okay.
So I'm like, bro, I'm gonna go to LA. I just did a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. I'm fucking big deal.
What movie was it?
It's called Warbirds.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Damn, dude.
Made some good friends. Still friends with people off that movie, but it was not great. Right. But yeah, I'm fucking going to LA. Everybody's gonna know who I am.
I'm a big time.
Yeah. So we were like, hey man, let's go out there to LA. We're gonna go to this Fangoria convention. And he was like, hell yeah, dude, because he's a horror fan. I'm a horror fan. And that whole trip wound up being kind of crazy because that show was great. We got to meet like George Romero, and we met a lot of horror, iconic horror actors and stuff. But it was a pretty small show, and they were having a porn awards were going on at the same time. So they were in like the next like convention room over from the horror show. So in the lobby of that thing, you could imagine it was fucking crazy.
They probably had like 10 times more people.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. It was insane. But it was nothing you would go back to. You kind of hit it in the day and you're there. But we're going to be there for the weekend. So I was like, man, I'm going to put like a little itinerary together. Let me see what we can find out, what we can do while we're here. And one of the things I saw was that they were doing at the Samuel Goldwyn Theater in Beverly Hills, which I'm pretty sure was the place they originally filmed the Academy Awards.
Okay.
The original ones.
Right.
They're doing this thing called like an Oscar series where they would screen, I think it was once a month, they would screen a movie that had won an Academy Award, and then you'd stay over for a Q&A. It was for like film buffs.
Oh, cool, man.
You'd stay over for a Q&A, and they would have some members of the cast or the crew or whatever, and they would just answer questions kind of afterwards. And it was pretty cool. Well, it just so happened to be the weekend we were going there, the movie they were screening was Pulp Fiction, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. Dude. And it was supposed to be like, God, I think it was the editor was going to be there, which was really cool in hindsight because she was Quentin Tarantino's editor and she wound up passing away. I think she died on like a hike in the desert or something, like heat stroke or something. But there was like the dude that played the Gimp was the only actor. So it was like nobody crazy, but it was just a bunch of crew from the like costume designers and shit like that. Yeah. And I love that movie. So I'm like, hell yeah, dude, this will be awesome. I get to watch the movie in this dope ass movie theater. Because I mean, it's just a fucking Beverly Hills movie theater, been around since the early 1900s. It was crazy. I love it. And, so I was like, this is going to be fun, and I think we paid, I paid like $5 or $10 for a ticket to this. So
cheap.
Yeah. We go to this thing and, the movie's getting ready to start. They kind of explain, hey, we're going to watch the movie. Then afterwards, stay, hang around. There'll be some Q&A. They gave out these little playbills, which like a black and white little John Travolta on the front and a couple of other small photos on the side. And then on the back of it, it was like a stat sheet.
Okay.
How much the movie cost, when it came out, all the awards that it won, and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, shit.
And so you kind of got this little playbill, and you sat in your seat. And I was like, okay, cool. The lights go down. And right when the movie's about to start, we were sitting probably, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 rows towards the very back of the theater.
Okay.
And this is a theater, when you walk in, there's a door on the left and a door on the right with aisles that go down and screens in the front. So in the middle, you have your longer sections of seats, and then you have off to the left and right side, there's smaller, like maybe 4 seats or whatever. And so the movie's about to start, the lights go down, and we're towards the back. And then I see the light from the lobby from somebody who just opened the door, right, to my left, and I turn over my left shoulder, and it's fucking Quentin Tarantino.
Dude, I would have shit myself.
He walks in, I tell my buddy, he's like, holy fucking shit, dude, that's Quentin Tarantino.
And he's tall, huh?
I don't remember him being like super tall.
Yeah, he always looks like fucking super tall in movies.
You can't miss him. Yeah, I mean, he has a very distinct look.
Yeah, for sure.
So this dude comes in, and this was probably 15 years after the movie came out in 94, I think. This is like the 15th year it had been out. And he sits 2 rows behind us to the left. So he's like 2 rows behind me over my left shoulder.
Yeah.
And we watched this whole fucking movie. And that guy is like cackling and laughing and shit like loud. Like he'd never seen this before. Like he was fucking immersed into this experience, dude. It was insane. And then afterwards, he gets up on stage and talks with all the other folks that were there. He probably gave a good hour and a half of his time.
Wow.
Just answering questions, talking about making this movie, just like he just made it. I mean, the dude was fucking hyped to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we got to meet him, and he autographed that little playbill for me, me and my buddy.
Well, that's the thing, man. Like he's like us. Like he's obsessed.
Dude, yeah.
Like he was on one of Joe Rogan's podcasts, and dude, like just when I found out like more in depth like how he thinks.
Yeah.
I was like, and dude, he had a lot of rejections too, man.
Oh, I'm
believe
certain.
it or not.
Yeah.
Like he got fucking rejected quite a few times.
Yeah, it's everyone, all of them, man.
Like people didn't believe in his work. They said he wasn't gonna make it, and he just stuck to his fucking guns, dude.
But I'm always like, tell people, I'm like, everyone has like, in everybody's life, you have moments, that kind of just like the stars align or whatever, and it's just something weird happens. I've had a lot of those. Like that same trip, that same LA trip, before that day, before we went and saw Pulp Fiction that night, there's this, I can't remember the name of this record store, but there's this really famous record store in Los Angeles. It's 2 floors. It's fucking huge. And we were in there just kind of peeping it out. This thing's gigantic. And so we're on the 2nd floor and just flipping through these records. And I look beside, dude, and this fucking Glenn Danzig is right beside me.
No shit.
So I'm flipping through this thing of records, and he's like 2 things of records right to my side, just shopping for records, just weird shit like that. So you have in life these weird moments where stuff like that happens, you know. I've had a lot of like really strange ones,
Dude, that's
like,
crazy.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's crazy, to think that I got to watch Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite movies of all time, with fucking Quentin Tarantino in Beverly Hills at the Goldwyn Theater. And then the crazy thing, dude, that theater was probably 30% full.
Wow.
There wasn't that many people there.
Wow.
Because it's something they do all the time, and I guess they take it for granted, and everybody's like, I'm not going to do that shit.
How long ago was it made from like the time y'all watched it there? Like how many years was it out?
15, I think.
Fuck.
Yeah,
dude.
I think this was 2009.
And because, dude, his time's so valuable. That dude's so fucking crazy busy.
Yeah.
But to think like that experience sparked from you trying to learn how to write better.
Yeah, that's exactly. And the other side note is no one knew who the fuck I was.
Yeah,
I think one TSA agent had seen Warbirds, and he was like, "Were you in that Sci-Fi Channel movie?"
Fucker.
Yeah, so it still searched me off to the side of the X-ray machine. But yeah, nobody knew shit about Jon McCarthy out there. I can tell you.
Well, hopefully after this podcast, more people know about you. So like, let's get into like your actual comics, man. Like how many? You know, you said you were in the double digits.
Yeah.
How long ago did you start writing comics? Like seriously?
That one that took us to LA that time. That one I did in 2009 with that same friend of mine, Sean Cerny, who went with me to that Fangoria show and watched Pulp Fiction with me out there. He and I did this one. I wrote this book, and that was kind of like me figuring it out. Right. You know, we self-published it. We found a local artist to draw it, and we were like, man, we're about to do this shit. You know, we started our own publishing company.
What that felt like?
Felt great.
Like getting to that point where you like, you know. It
felt good, but then I learned pretty quickly, like, you know, oh, this don't work out like I thought it was going to work out. You know, like you thought, I thought I was going to make this book and everybody was going to be buying it. You know, we had to hustle this thing to sell shit. That's why I always make a joke. I always say it sold tens of copies worldwide. You know, I think we may have sold 300 copies of this thing. That was it. And then,
watch me see that.
Yeah, it's not the greatest of all time, but it's a lot of fun. But so I made that book, and
it looks sick.
It is pretty crazy. And then after that one, we were like, okay, we're going to make the follow-up issue to it. A bunch of things happened there. Artists fell through and all this other kind of stuff, and it never worked out. And it was that rejection. You know, you go to comic shops, and they're like, we'll carry this thing, we'll put it on the shelf, but we're not going to give you any money for it. It'll be a consignment kind of a thing. You know, where if it sells, we'll keep 65% of it and give you 35%. You know, so I was like, well, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, dude, you do better selling those bitches on the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Like out your truck.
That's where I sold most of them, was at a comic convention.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was kind of like a wake up call, and I was like, okay. But I think it's kind of like when you started, you started your podcast in your bedroom or in the room
I had
at
a spare bedroom at my house over a year ago.
You learn a lot.
Oh yeah,
doing it that way. It's like musicians. You know, you always hear the stories about musicians where they make their first album and then they're touring around in a van and trying to schlep these copies off wherever they can sell them. You know, to get anybody. That's the same kind of experience, and I think we've spent some money on that book, but the education that I got from that experience, same as probably you had, is invaluable, and I feel like everyone has to do that. That goes back to what we were originally talking about, where on that quest that you're on to accomplish that big goal that you set before yourselves, you can't take shortcuts, man.
No, man.
You got to take all the steps, so something like that I think is important, and that's the rejection that you're going to get. And that happened, and then we spent a lot of time, and it didn't work out for the second issue, and for whatever reason. And so that kind of got sidetracked, and then I was focusing on like, all right, so I'm just going to keep writing these stories. Yeah. And eventually I'll get them made, eventually, or I'm going to pitch them to publishers, So then I started trying to go this route where I was just going to pitch to these comic publishers just off of a script, which is almost impossible to do, because it's a visual thing. So they really want to see a finished product before they'll even agree to work with you.
Yeah, the concept.
Yeah. So I spent some time doing that, and I started getting frustrated. I was like, I'm writing all this shit, but I really want to get it to the next level. Right. I really want to be a published author. So, excuse me, I went through and I started kind of reading some more writing books and listening to podcasts and things like that about writing. And one of the first rules that you hear about with writing is write what you know. If you're having any trouble with your writing, take a step back, write what you know. And so that's when I was like, all right, one thing I know is about EMS, and I've had some crazy ass experiences working on ambulances, especially in a city like New Orleans. So that same guy, Sean, that was with me for the Fangoria show that helped me make that book, he and I were partners for like 6 years on ambulances with New Orleans. Damn. That's really rare to work with someone that long. Yeah. But I had co-created the training officer program for the city of New Orleans. So I kind of had the option to keep my partner, because I was training so many new people and stuff. So they didn't break us apart. Yeah, they didn't break. Yeah, I don't know about that, but they just left me the fuck alone mainly. Right. So I decided he and I have been together for 6 years. I can go over and just tell the craziest shit that we've experienced in that 6-year period in a book. So then I wrote this book, Hard Roll. This is like nonfiction memoir, I think is what it's called. But that got me a book contract.
Right. So you wrote a physical book.
Yes.
And then, like, because you said that was different.
Yeah, it
earlier.
It is.
And then you got a contract.
Nonfiction is not as, I don't think, as difficult as writing, like you were talking about your friend who's a novelist.
Yes.
Writing fiction, I think, is a lot more difficult.
Gotcha.
Because this is basically just me writing out stories that have happened.
Well, no. Oh, okay. Right. So these are like true stories. Versus, Gotcha.
Yeah. And not me making up characters and saying what they're thinking and all that kind of stuff. So I did that book. It got me a book contract, which was awesome. And I'm like, here we go, baby. Now we cooking. Now we cooking,
Let's go.
So part of that contract was they did this book, and then they had the right to the next thing that I wrote, whatever it would be. And even at this point,
like Control,
they had the first right of refusal. They had to offer it to them first, and they could pass on it if they wanted to.
You couldn't go to someone else,
right?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
So it's like back when I was acting for a little bit. I got lucky one time. I did this Visa commercial, similar kind of a thing. Nice. So when you do a Visa commercial or a branded commercial like that, you have to make an agreement where you're not going to do any shit with their competitors.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't go do I couldn't audition for a MasterCard or American Express card. Yeah, same kind of a thing like that.
Nice. So it's fair.
So I did this book. It came out. A lot of people liked it. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to offer these dudes another book. So I went and wrote a second book. And the second book, the concept was I'm going to take all my medical knowledge and I'm going to write a book for parents. So to teach them what to do if their kids were ever to get sick or hurt, slam dunk, right? I'm like, bro, bestseller list, here I come.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the fucking easiest book in the world to sell.
This is taking care of your kids for dummies.
You dude. Like, what to expect when you're expecting. I actually became like online friends with the woman that wrote that book when I was doing this. I was like, oh yeah, this is even her was like, oh, that's a great idea. Dude. So I'm like, my publisher's gonna fucking love this. Send it to them. They're like, no, we're not gonna publish that. I was like, what? And at that same time, I decided I was going to go out and find me a literary agent. I'm like, I've already had an acting agent, I've already been a member
covering
of the Screen Act. I'm leveling up. That's what I was going for.
And what did they do?
So literary agents, same like an acting agent. They'll take your book and pitch it to like big publishers.
Oh, nice. So now
so this is a smaller, this is a smaller publisher. So you want to get with like Random House or Simon and Schuster, those big dogs.
Oh shit.
Well, that didn't work out either.
Okay.
So literary agents work like those big publishers. They're very similar, as they work off of. I had one literary agent. Most of them won't even respond to you, but I had one respond to me. She goes, "Listen, let me tell you what the deal is," because I was like, "I don't understand it. I mean, to me, this is a slam dunk book."
Yeah.
She goes, "Let me explain this to you to save you some time and save you some frustration in the future." She goes, "It doesn't matter what the book is. It doesn't matter. The publishing business is a business. So these publishers, these bigger ones, they want to be able to sell books as easy as possible. They don't want to have to put a bunch of marketing dollars and shit behind this to get your name out there. They want to sell it off of your name. So they do what they call, they query your artist's footprint is the term she used. And what that means, she said, is they will go out and they will do investigate you basically online and find out roughly how many, they can approximate how many books they could sell just off of your name. So if you have a lot of followers, it's much easier to sell a book.
For sure.
So the way she explained it to me, she goes, that's why you see so many reality TV stars, musicians, actors, famous people with shitty books. Was what she said, because it's easy to sell books off of their name.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't matter how good the book is. She goes, don't get discouraged that you don't think that your book sucks. It's not that your book sucks. It's just it doesn't matter if it sucks or not because it's a business. So I was like, well, that fucking blows, So I'm like, all right, so let me refocus my gear. But that released me from my contract.
Okay.
The publisher was offered it. They passed on it. So I'm like, cool. Now I'm going to go focus on making comic books.
Nice. And
so that Hard Roll, the one that was published, came out in, I think, 2017. I spent a lot of time writing that second one. So that was probably like 2019 as all this rejection and stuff starts falling apart. And that's when I decided I'm going to focus on comic books. I was back to my original problem with comic books, is that I can't draw shit. Right. So I'm like, I'm going to have to try to find an artist to do this. Well, my experiences with that Hungry for Stink book taught me a valuable lesson in that I'm not going to deal with amateur artists anymore because they flake out.
Right.
That's like what happened.
You're going to have to invest.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to get a pro, but to get a pro, you're going to have to pay a pro, because unlike writers, pro artists, especially for comic books, that's what they do for a living.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of time to draw those stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So they're not working a day job and then drawing a 22-page comic book on the side, you know, most of them. So that put me in a position because I'm like, I ain't got that kind of money, you know, to pay a pro artist. So I just kept writing the stories. And I'm like, eventually I'm going to find out it's all going to line up. It's all going to work. And then fortunately, I have a buddy of mine, Nathan Jared. And this is a crazy story because this kid, I used to play this video game called Left 4 Dead 2.
Oh, yeah.
So I loved it, dude. I was like obsessed with it. And I made this little network of friends on Xbox that we played with around the country.
Wow.
One of them was this kid in North Arkansas. He was in high school at the time we were playing this. That game came out probably like 2010, something like that. So he was in high school at the time. And we've stayed friends since then, you know, just online really.
Yeah, I've had some buddies like that with Gears of War.
Yeah. You meet some of these dudes and you stay friends with them forever. So he decides, you know, I'm talking to him. We're playing, I don't remember what we were playing, Fortnite or something. And he was like, hey, man, I might be interested in helping you make these books. And I was like, no shit. Yeah. So he has a good job. He's not like independently wealthy or anything, but he's wise with his money, you know, single guy, has his own house, you know, makes a good annual living. And he's like, I'll throw some money behind this if I like the story. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I sent it to him and he liked them. So then we were off to the races.
Dude, so you had an investor now.
Yeah. Then we have the investor, and this is in like 2019, 2020. And I had this series that I had written called Endangered. And he got behind that, and we found the artist, a guy named Ron Joseph, who's a really good artist. Man, he had drawn some G.I. Joe comic books and stuff like that for this bigger publisher. Reached out to him. He's a horror guy, sci-fi guy. He was like, oh, yeah, I'll love to do this. Right. So we agreed to do that with him, and then I found this colorist who was in Spain. Found a letterer and a graphic designer who's up in New York. So we got a team all over the freaking world, you know. And then we started making them, you know, and we made those first 4. It's supposed to be an 8-issue series. We made 4 of them that came out last year. And then, again, the obstacles and the adversity happened. You know, there was a bunch of screw-ups on the way comic books work real quick is you put your book out and it comes out in a catalog. Okay. The way it works for us. There's a couple ways to do it, but I wanted my book to be nationally distributed. I wanted it to go to comic book stores. Correct. So the way that works is it gets put into this catalog called Diamond, which is the big distributor for comics. And comic book stores have a window of time to order that book from that catalog. And then there's a cutoff date, and after that, it's done. No shit. So you're only going to get you're only selling as many copies as were ordered in that window, right? Gotcha. So we put the first one out, does really good, like really good. But then it gets screwed up somewhere from the distributor or the publisher. Somebody made, there was a mistake that was made where they allowed this issue 2 cutoff to happen before that first one was even in the shops. Oh, wow. So we had these big number of orders for the first one. Then people received the book. They're like, awesome. You know, we want to get our issue 2. And like, oh, you can't get issue 2 now. It's got, you know, it's not available anymore. Wow. So it's a screw up like that. It was really, people really liked it. You know, it was really well regarded, but it just, again, it was that universe, like kicking you right in the balls one more time to just test that resilience again. So we had to kind of put that on the shelf because that cost some money. Right. You know, 4 issues of that.
What is like a normal comic book, just one being published, cost?
For ours, I mean, it'll kind of vary, but we usually have about, and I say we, it means my buddy Nathan. Yeah. Usually around $4,000. That's a lot. Just on art costs. Yeah. That's not that's not including any sort of promotional materials or marketing stuff, nothing like that.
And then for that company to fuck up your potential release, it's like, wow,
it hurts.
So that's a L.
And then you're trying to come back with issues 3 and 4 to hopefully that you can gain some momentum, but then it's the train's off the tracks at that point.
So what happened to 2? It was just like lost.
Yeah, and the orders drop by the typical model for comics is you'll put the first one out, the first one will do whatever it does, and then they say you can expect about a 20%, 30% at worst drop in your sales for issue 2. Okay. And then it'll slowly start to climb back up. Nice. That screw up for our issue 2 dropped at about 85%. So it was, it killed it.
Yeah, you're in the negative.
Yo, dude, it was horrible. But we have the story. We put it out so far. We're really happy with where it's at. The plan is to eventually continue because we're all going to finish the story because it's 8 issues. We only done 4. Nice. So the plan right now is I have a bunch of individual books that are coming out this year, and the plan is we're going to maybe go back and take Endangered and start it from scratch again, maybe
Nice.
with like a crowdfunding type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully recoup some of that money to allow some,
maybe a GoFundMe.
Yeah, something like that. Or Kickstarter or one of those bad boys, you know. And then, that kind of changed the whole way I approach comics for the rest of this year, because now I'm just doing them one at a time. I'm not doing a series like that because I'm not going to take that chance again. You know?
Well, you learned.
Yeah, you learn. And it's just like anything else, like you and I were talking about with your show, man. You have to build like some recognition. You have to build your followers.
Yes.
You know, for my case, I have to build readers.
Yes.
You know, so if you just have to keep putting out work, and then slowly you start building up this reader base, and then that way you can come back out with something that's a little bit bigger. And then, you have some people that are waiting for it, You build relationships with, in my case, like comic book stores around the world, really, and if they dig what you're doing and you're friendly with those cats, then that's how you kind of do it.
How old are you, dude?
50.
And your birthday's in September 6th, like mine, so we're both Virgos. Yep. I mean, just from the moment that I spoke with you on the phone that day, I could just feel like you have that same thing as me. Yeah. And like just all the shit you were saying, I was like, wow, this dude is like kind of like me right now. He's investing all his money, not all of his money, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Like more than most people are willing to do, because they're like, oh, fuck, that's going to cost me how much? I'm not. Yeah, I guess that dream ain't that important, but it's so... It's like everything to you.
Oh yeah, so dude. I mean, I work a full-time job, and this book I got coming out that'll be out in the end of August, this trivia comic book. I spent probably 3 weeks where I was putting in 30 to 40 hours a week just calling comic book stores, letting them know about it, trying to get them to order the thing. You
like
know?
A producer.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And like this guy that has his shop in Arizona told me, he's like, hey man, if you're not willing to hype your book, who the fuck is going to do it for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to put in that work, especially if you're small like we are.
For sure, yeah. I mean, like I'm basically, Chris said, I'm like the producer of the show. Yeah. And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know that's what a producer was. I was like, huh, no shit. Yeah, book the talent, like all the other. But I love it, dude. It's like one day I'm probably not even gonna be talking to anybody that's coming on. And I'm gonna be kind of bummed out and be like, well, I gotta hang out with them first, right? Something, because so I enjoy it, dude.
Yeah,
and
dude.
I can tell you do too.
That's the thing, man, is you just find, and that's probably why the acting didn't work out for me, like we talked about, is I wasn't able or willing to commit to that at the level that you need to do that. Right. Because that's something that, same as what we were talking about before, you're not going to break out and be a big superstar out the gate. You're going to have to take all these parts, do all these auditions, and if you're booking 10% of what you're auditioning for, you're killing it in that thing, So you're maybe getting one out of every 10 projects that you're trying to get at best, So it's not something that you can half-ass do, to quote Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing, So you have to you have to commit to it fully, and I didn't do it with the acting, and that's most likely why that didn't work out.
Well, I feel like that's kind of with my hair career. I fell short, I started doing it at 14. Yeah. And it's all I know how to do. I've tried other jobs, had other jobs, like I told you, but I still cut hair. Yeah. And I feel like when I kind of screwed that up a little bit somewhere a couple of years ago, and then I found this new outlet, and I was like, man, I think I want to try podcasting. But it was the only thing I ever like thought I would try to do to like the next level. Yeah. Like nothing ever else. I always, like, even when I did the acting shit that I told you, the extra work. Yeah. I never tried to find an agent because I didn't want to be an actor. I wanted to, but not really. I was like, oh shit, well, I won't be able to cut hair. I have to go do all these gigs and I might not get paid. Right. Got to pay the bills. Right. But with this, man, it was like, I'm going to pay my debt off, do all the shit I got to do, and I'm going to find a fucking way. And just like you with the comics, you literally learned how to create a comic from nothing. Yeah. So like now you know how to create a comic. Yeah, you not have even the writing, the art, the
blood, sweat, and tears. It's like being in a video game. You have to have that experience to level up your character. Yeah, and you're doing it now with the podcast. Sir. I'm doing it with the writing and stuff like that. So I think for everybody that's watching or listening to this, I mean, that's something to take away from this. I think that's really important, and it seems like it would be common sense, but I don't think people really fully appreciate. Like, chase your dreams, but chase them fully. You don't half-ass it because it's not going to carry you to where you need to be, and you're never going to get there.
I didn't go all in with hair. I used to say I did, but I was kind of like heavily into bodybuilding, so I was like, ADHD as fuck, half-assing both.
Right.
And I always felt torn because, man, I wanted to be a bodybuilder, and man, I wanted to be a hairstylist, platform artist, all this crazy shit, but I also wanted to go out and party and like fucking, you know, so when I started this, all that shit's out of my system.
Right.
Totally different man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I have to, like my friend Jeff said, be obsessed.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing ever since.
You know, I think that might lend to, like I was talking before, but where you have these weird experiences. You know, I feel like a lot of that maybe comes when you're on the right track. You know, like I said, the universe is going to test you, but I also feel like it kind of rewards you along the way with just little weird signs if you pay attention to what's going on around you. You know, like I said, that fucking Quentin Tarantino, it's just that was such a weird thing. But, you know, the odds, when you sit back and think of the odds of something like that happening, you know, it's crazy, you know. So I look at that as kind of like, that was maybe like a sign telling me that I was on the right path, you know, that I was had checked a few of the right boxes off along this journey and to keep doing what I was doing.
Well, dude, God opens up all the doors. He gives you a lot of doors to walk through. You know, sometimes you might not walk through all of them, or you walk through one and you're like, oh shit, I got to go back. Yeah. You know, so he kind of gives you that choice. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you about your comics, man, or just in touch with you?
Yeah, the best place is really honestly on the Instagram page, Endangered Comic. That's where I post all the other stuff up. You know, we're about to launch, me and my partner Nathan, we're about to launch an app that we're doing. That's not quite ready to go yet, but that's going to be coming really, really soon. Nice. Probably within the next like month or so. I'd say we're ready to get that off the ground.
And can you like disclose what that is, or you got to wait? Or?
No. It's hell, I'm the co-creator. I can talk about it if I want to.
Now you're creating apps, man.
It's going to be called Panels and Pages, and what it's going to be is it's a writing platform. It's a community for writers, and it's going to launch initially with comic writers and short story authors. Okay. And this is a community where you'll be able to come in and just be with other creators in a similar thing. And this kind of takes a rising tide raises all ships approach. So the way it'll work is you will upload one of your stories on there. And for yours to go out to be reviewed, you will have to first read and review two other people's stuff. The model behind this is there's two kind of golden rules when it comes to, especially with writing. Number one, you need to be immersed in whatever you're writing. So if you're writing comics, you need to read a lot of comics. If you're writing stories, you need to read a lot of stories. If you're writing movie scripts, you need to read a lot of movie scripts and watch a lot of movies. And the second thing is probably the most valuable tool that I learned. Goes back to that kill your darlings thing. The most valuable tool I learned to have in your toolbox as a writer is you have to have access to someone who is going to give you unbiased feedback on your stuff. Gotcha. To tell you what sucks, what doesn't suck, what, you know, that kind of a thing. That's really hard for a lot of writers to get, because most of the time you're going to write something, you're going to show it to your friends, you show it to your family, they're going to be like, oh, this is awesome, you know. And it might suck ass, you know, but they're going to spare your feelings. You know?
They're going to sugarcoat it.
That doesn't help you.
No.
You need to know what's not working so you can make it the best it can be. And that's what this app basically is going to do, is it's going to let each person work with helping someone else while they're being helped themselves. Something I'm really excited about. I think it's going to do really well. And that'll be, we're going to probably do a beta test on that within the next month or so, I'd say.
Dude. So from your son being born to saying, fuck it, I'm going to chase my dream, here we are, creating apps.
I know, dude. It's insane. Like I said, you look back on it and you're like, holy shit, man. Like I've had a wild ride, you know, so far. But and then when you start getting, like I said, I'm 50, man. So you start getting to be this age. I wish I would have started doing this shit a long time ago. But where I grew up at, in the era that I grew up at, chasing your dreams was considered kind of frivolous and kind of stupid. You know, it wasn't encouraged.
But at least you started.
Dude, if I would have told everybody when I was growing up at the little country town I grew up at, I'm going to be an actor one day. Yeah. You could imagine the shit I would have heard, you know, typically from that. And I didn't really start doing that till I was like 27, 28 years old, you know, so I was like, I wish I would have done a little bit early. So, correct. You know, and that's why I wanted to set that example for my kids, you know, and now my oldest son, he's 23 now, and he's, you know, we were talking about that before. He's a fitness fanatic, you know, jiu-jitsu and all that. He's training for like special forces and all this shit. My youngest son, he just started ULL up in Lafayette last semester, and he's big time into gaming. Yeah. So he's on the path of either becoming educated to make video games, or he's on their collegiate esports team. So he might want to be in a pro gamer.
So our buddy Brandon owns NOLA Flight, which is the esports company.
Nice.
And that's, so maybe I can get him in touch with him.
Hey, if they have a League of Legends team,
I think they do.
My boy's pretty good.
Yeah.
He's on the ULL team.
Yeah, man. He's local New Orleans guy. Awesome. And he's just trying to, blow it up and put New Orleans on the map. Yeah. Gaming's $1 billion industry.
Dude, you ever watch that show? Side note, it was HBO did a show with The Rock called what was it called? He was an agent.
Yeah.
You remember that? Oh shit, I can't remember the name of it. But anyways, one of his in the show, he had this big client. It was like an Aaron Donald type character. And the dude said he didn't want to play football anymore. He was going to be a gamer. So they created a part of their sports agency that was for esports gamers. And that was the game that dude went to play was League of Legends. Well,
I'm telling you, man, it's $1 billion industry. And that's the thing. Like everything right now is there's a market out there for everything. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's going to be like the biggest. But, I mean, you can make money pretty much doing anything you want to do nowadays.
Sure, yeah.
And that's what thank you for coming on tonight to inspire me and hopefully everybody else watching and listening. Yeah. That no matter what age you can go after what you want.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, dude, you're living your dream right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had in my eyes some successes way fucking before. You probably shoulda or the average person would have got them.
Right.
So I think you don't give yourself enough credit.
Well. Yeah, that's part of it.
But that's the humble part.
Yeah.
And
the one thing I'll say, man, as we're wrapping this thing up is, and I'll give this out to everybody who's out there listening to this, is from being a paramedic, as long as I've been a paramedic, I can firmly attest to the statement that tomorrow is promised to no one. So don't hold off on doing what you want to do with the hopes that, once X, Y, and Z are done, then I can go and pursue my dream.
Yeah.
Pursue it now because you don't know how much time you got. None of us do.
No.
We have no idea how long we're going to be here. So you might as well go balls deep, man, while you're still here, while you're breathing. Go chase your dream, do what you want to do, and don't put it off. You go do it.
You can't live in the past, as my sponsor would say. You can't go back there. You can't predict the future. Right. And tomorrow isn't promised. So all you have is right now. So why don't you fucking do something right now?
Yeah, man. Leave a mark on the planet. Leave it better than you got it,
I think that's what we're doing, man.
Yeah, I think so.
I appreciate you coming on, John.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, man.
Dude, thank you so much.
We didn't get to tell you all my crazy alien stories and everything else. I got all kinds of
think
stories.
I think we're past the 50-minute mark, but no, man. I know I'm gonna have you back on because I know you had a lot of different things and we've talked about a lot of stuff, but hopefully what we said tonight was what people need to see.
I really appreciate you guys having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
And when I do have you back on next time, hopefully those other books drop and got some crazy ass news.
Oh yeah, dude. That's what we're going for, right?
Yeah, dude. Thank you. If you guys like this episode, just please hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends. That's the way we get out there. If you share it with other people, right? That's how, especially nowadays on the World Wide Web. So
nothing is more valuable than a recommendation from someone. You can do all the marketing and advertisement and all that shit that you want, but having word of mouth recommendations is the most valuable thing you can have.
Yeah. Still true to this day.
And it's free.
Yeah. Still true to this day, as they used to say in the hair industry. Word of mouth. But okay, guys, that's all we have for tonight. Y'all have a good night. Thanks.
Appreciate it.